Oh my gosh, I'll tell you, you ever just wake up in the morning and have that first sip of coffee? A little bit of French vanilla in there. I don't know how you like yours. Feel free to drop it in the comments section and just think to yourself, my gosh, that is just absolutely fucking beautiful. I mean, if there is ever proof of a higher power, a cup of coffee in the morning, if I could get it onto the camera, that's one of them right there. But either way, not at all the topic of the episode. Good morning to you, of course. If you are watching this in the morning, if you're watching this before you go to bed, I'd say perhaps good night. Go to bed after this episode. But obviously, as per the title, we're here to talk about the Colts defensive coordinator search. As we know, the Colts have now interviewed, or at least confirmed that they're going to interview, quite a few defensive coordinators at this point. And I'm not going to pretend to sit here and be an expert on each one of the candidates that we have, but I'm also going to try to give my best interpretation or my best take on what it is that we're looking at right here for the Indianapolis Colts as it currently stands for these guys that we have as candidates for the defensive coordinator spot. I mean, listen, there might be more interviews coming. I don't know the general practice, like how many guys normally get interviewed before a job being given out. Obviously, you assume it has to be before free agency and the draft and all that stuff because you want the coach to be a part of that process so he can do stuff that is going to help him achieve what he has to achieve. So one of the big questions I have is what exactly is it that we want from that next guy, that defensive coordinator? Now, for me personally, I want a little bit of something that I call a little bit of the a little bit of the nasty. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't love a nice guy on defense, particularly on that side of the ball. Like, defense, that's some rough stuff, what those guys do out there. Like, I like no nonsense, aggressive, physical type of style on defense. And in this league, with all the advantages that the offense has, you really need a defense, in my opinion, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. That's going to take it to the offense, right? That's going to actually make it difficult for the offense to figure out what it is that they're doing. Make them think a little bit, you know? Whether that's dialing up pressure, a bunch of pre-snap movement, right? Guys aren't set, per se, in their positions before the ball is snapped, or just an attitude and ability to tackle. You need something from your defense that kind of can just take over moments in a game. And the only thing I do know is that unless you just have absolutely elite talent on that side of the ball, you can't just sit there, show exactly what you're going to do, play soft, not send pressure, and just kind of let the offense come to you. It's just too easy in today's NFL with all the great offensive minds and the way that the rule book is essentially set up to make it a little bit easier for the offense, because we all know that fans love watching points be scored. You got to do something to throw a team off rhythm. So as far as the candidates go so far, you know, I'm sure actually many of you know who they are. I don't want to take for granted that you might not. So we've got Martindale, who is defensive coordinator at Michigan right now, formerly of the Giants and the Broncos. We got the Browns safety coach, Ephraim Banda. I mean, that butchered it. Ephraim Banda. Okay. We've got Saints head coach, or former Saints head coach, of course, Dennis Allen, Steve Wilks, and the Bengals former defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. So those are the guys right now. And I want to talk a little bit about each of these candidates, and we'll come back around to this topic a little bit more as the search progresses. But we are going to try to cover other things over here too. But that being said, today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about a bunch of guys who, well, are not even part of the Colts coaching staff yet, right? So that's kind of where I want to be careful how much time am I investing into this topic. Then again, I'm out here talking about Tanner McKee, right? So I guess we could put some time in the defensive coordinator spot. But before we do, you know what it is. My name is Justin. This right here is the Ride on the Bench Colts podcast. As always, ask anyone watching and enjoying the show, go ahead, shoot a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We are on the road to 5,000 subscribers right now. We ain't even at 3,100, I don't think. So 3,500 would be the bite-sized piece of that. But ultimately, 5,000 is the big goal over here. That's going to be the one that I say, whoa, we made it there. That's going to be the one. Audio listeners, a five-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying the show. But most importantly, be civil in the comment section if you're going to comment. Try to be productive in the discussion, okay? Don't just start yapping nonsense, quite frankly. That's not the type of environment and community I want to build over here. It's one thing to disagree, it's another thing to be talking crazy, okay? So, overall, on the defensive candidates so far, I'm going to be honest with you. I am not, and listen, I'm not a defensive guru, so I could be missing a whole bunch of stuff here, okay? I'm not super thrilled about the guys that we've interviewed so far for a couple reasons. Really, mostly all of them have gotten fired before, okay, as a defensive coordinator. So we're kind of taking people's sloppy seconds. That being said, on the other hand, they do have the experience of having been a defensive coordinator as opposed to maybe someone doing it for the first time at the NFL level. Now, if I had to rank these guys, I would say 1 and 2 for me. 1 and 2 for me have to be Wink Martindale and Dennis Allen for sure. Okay. And then from there, I think that guy Ephraim Banda is a little more interesting than a lot of people are going to give him credit for. I think people say, okay, Brown safety coach, what the heck does that have to do with anything? Well, one, he's the only one who hasn't been fired as defensive coordinator. He's a younger guy, and there's a level of the unknown that I suppose I would find intriguing about him, and a little bit of his resume as well. You got Steve Wilks out there. I don't know about that. And then you got Lou Anarumo, and I certainly don't know about that. In fact, I think I do know about that. And I'm not sure I want that to be our next guy, particularly after what we just dealt with. Dennis Allen, though, we'll start there, seems to be a lot of people's favorite candidate so far. Runs a 4-3 defense, a lot of cover one, man-to-man. Saints defensive coordinator from 2015 to 2021. Before coming the head coach of the team, I mean, he was with that organization for quite a period of time. So obviously, if you're thinking about, I'm not saying that any of us are doing hiring, but one thing that we all know that an employer is going to like to see, or a potential employer is going to like to see, is the fact that you kind of stuck around for a while at your last job, right? That there's not a lot of turnover when it comes to you and where it is that you're working. So, okay, not too bad. But as defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, first 2 years in New Orleans, 2015, 2016, the defense was awful, but before ultimately having a damn good run as a defense before he came to head coach. Like, there was a few years there where the Saints were considered to be one of the better defenses in all of the league. Now, the issues here for me, as far as him becoming the defensive coordinator of the Colts, are really as followed. Number one, the years the Saints were really good on defense, I mean, they had a few real great players in the secondary that I'm not sure that we have right now. I mean, they had Marcus Lattimore, Kenny Vaccaro, who kind of now is really not anything, but at the time was a really, really good safety. Marcus Williams was playing really, really good football at that time. And again, this was 17, 18, stuff like that. So obviously the secondary, things phase out. But for those of you guys who were watching at the time, those were pretty big-time players. Lattimore still getting it done today. So do we have the personnel on the back end, like the Saints did, to be running Dennis Allen's defense? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not saying we don't, but it is something that gives me a little bit of pause. And number two, as the head coach of the Saints, he did oversee and call the defense. And they were not all that good at all this year on defense. Now, I know there's the reality that as a head coach is different, even if we could say it's with Shane Steichen, right? Where sure, he's a great offensive coordinator, but as a head coach, there's a little bit of learning to do. And, perhaps some of that learning does take away a little bit from kind of what got him to that position because, there's a lot more things to manage. There's a lot more on your mind, a lot more stress, whatever it may be. I'm just saying buzzwords at a certain point. But nonetheless, we look at Dennis Allen, and you can't ignore the fact that the Saints defense this past year particularly, really not all that special. Now, of course, they had injuries, and we know that on offense, or rather for a defense, injuries on offense are never going to help because when the offense sucks, ultimately that just puts your defense at a disadvantage. A lot of the times the defense is going to feed off the energy of the offense, at least to the extent that if the offense is really bad, man, it's tough to just hold up for 4 quarters without any hope on the other side of the ball. And that's a lot of the time what we saw from the Saints this year. But the biggest one is that we talk about missed tackles. The Indianapolis Colts led the league with 755 missed tackles this past year. And really, that is ultimately the biggest thing we would have to address. I thought we made plays at times, but ultimately too many big plays from guys either lacking effort or lacking fundamentals, whatever it was. I mean, how many times did we see guys whiff a tackle or just get flat out trucked? Julian Blackmon. Well, you look at the Saints last year with Dennis Allen, and they were tied for second in the league with missed tackles with 725, the other team being the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we all know how pitiful they are. So that's incriminating to some degree, because when teams aren't tackling well, sure, it can speak to fundamentals, but on some level, it does speak to a team that maybe not has given up, but something. I don't know the exact. I can't think of the precise way to put it, because it's not technically that there's no effort, and it's not technically that they've given up, and it's not technically that the coach has lost the locker room, but perhaps it's like kind of, a little bit of all those things combined into one big thing where you're just saying, okay, the defense is just not focused enough throughout the course of a given game. Let's put it that way, to be making these tackles. Ultimately, everyone knows how to tackle. You make it to the league. So if you can't get it done, there's kind of something going on beyond your ability, in my personal opinion, when you're missing that many tackles throughout the course of a season. And just on a side note, Dennis Allen kind of strikes me as a nice guy too. And what was I saying at the top of the show? A little bit of, right? A little bit of nasty. That's what we want to have over here. I don't know that I love Dennis Allen being a super nice guy. That being said, when you think of the idea of what we were doing, kind of cover three, stay back on defense and let the offense come to us, man-to-man with a lot of blitzing and switching up kind of the formations here and there, definitely can be interesting with the personnel that we have. I mean, you look at the corners we have in place when you talk about man-to-man coverage and you say Jalen Jones. I mean, I think that probably fits his skill set. He's a physical guy, long arms. And again, Jalen Jones, I think, has that nasty. I mean, how many times are we going to talk about that? So I kind of like Jalen Jones as a man-to-man guy. Now, he's lacking on the speed, sure. But at the same time, if you can press a guy at the line and make him work for it, you can make up for some of that. The offense only has so much time to develop when it comes to, getting the ball out of your hands, essentially, before the defensive line gets there. So, okay, Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore, Juju Brents, if he were ever to stay on the field for more than 2 games, and then you figure you add someone maybe in round 1 of the draft or free agency. A lot of people talking Tyler Warren round 1 of the draft, so perhaps it wouldn't be a corner. I don't know. But now all of a sudden you say, okay, you're playing man-to-man coverage, cover 1, maybe the linebackers can get a little bit more busy. I mean, our guys, say what you want about them, they can run around for sure. Like, we've got guys that fly around at linebacker and can tackle. They can tackle, okay? As much as you guys want to say they can't, EJ Speed is considered to be a blue-chip free agent. Now, do I think the Colts should bring him back? A conversation for a different day. But our linebackers can run around. So you get these guys blitzing a little bit more and covering a little bit less, and perhaps, that's a good thing for them. I have no clue. So I can see the positives here for sure in Dennis Allen. But am I in love with the candidate? Maybe not as much as other people. Wink Martindale, on the other hand, was a fixture, right? On that Ravens defense, as a linebackers coach and the defensive coordinator, for the better part of a decade, if not over a decade. I think it was 2012 to 2021. He transitioned from linebackers coach, I believe, going into the 2018 season, had 3 years there with the Baltimore Ravens. He's known also for being an aggressive guy. Common theme amongst these defensive coordinators, known for being aggressive, a lot of movement pre-snap from the linebackers and all that stuff. So kind of the offense is guessing as to who's going to be aligned where, who's doing what. A lot of blitzing from Wink Martindale. Also known for being a bit of a no-nonsense personality. No sugarcoating it with him. He's one of those guys, very straightforward, very blunt, no fluff when he talks. I kind of like that. I like that a lot, to be 100% honest with you. It's a welcome change of pace from what we had. But when you also kind of dive into it a little bit deeper, you do say, okay, really not a whole ton of success with the Giants and the Broncos. The Broncos in 2010 were the worst defense in football. And then the Giants were the Giants, albeit just kind of atrocious organizationally as a whole. So you ultimately, when you look at Wink Martindale and get excited, are deferring to those years in Baltimore and kind of but Baltimore has a culture built around defense, right? Does it have to do with Wink Martindale, or was he just a part of something there? That's kind of a good question, in my opinion, to consider when you're looking at him as a defensive coordinator candidate. Now, Steve Wilks, also known to blitz quite a bit. Again, all aggressive play callers here for the most part, but at the same time, a guy like Steve Wilks hasn't been someone's defensive coordinator for more than 1 season since the 1990s, and we're talking about like Savannah State, okay? Every time he's gotten a defensive coordinator job at the NFL level, it's been a one-and-done situation. So do I love that? No, not particularly. I know he's well-respected around the league, but, so is Gus Bradley. So I'd be lying if I said that I'm all that excited about Steve Wilks as a candidate. Lou Anarumo, listen, I mean, the Bengals had some good years with him as defensive coordinator, but this past season, or really this season, I guess we're still in it. I know it's hard for us to think about that because the playoffs are happening and we've got nothing to do with it, right? But, I mean, the Bengals defense this year was so monumentally bad that Burrow somehow having what was really just a sensational season, somehow they missed the playoffs. Like the Colts were 8-9 and the Bengals were what, 9-8? I mean, your defense has got to be bad. Like Burrow had to score 35, 40 points most of the time to win a football game, okay? So, hell, I don't want that guy. Like if that was the season that he just had, what world, even if he's had some success, why the heck should I get excited about him coming to be our defensive coordinator? That's just my personal opinion on that matter. And then Ephraim Banda, okay, a little interesting in the sense where he would be a first-time coordinator in the NFL. He's been the Browns safety coach for now 2 seasons, 2023 and 2024. 2023, the Browns were one of the better defenses in football and really one of the best, if not the best, pass defense in football and forced a lot of turnovers. So that's kind of interesting to me. And then this year, despite taking a step back, still a pretty good passing defense, all things considered. And you look and say, okay, well, he has defensive coordinator experience at Utah State. Really has kind of been at the college level until the Browns brought him in to be the safeties coach, but he's kind of moved up the totem pole, if you will, as a defensive guy pretty quickly. So, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about him, but I do think that, I mean, it'd be interesting. He's been part of good pass defenses. That's been a problem for us. So, and I think who is the Browns defensive coordinator right now? Let me not get ahead of myself. Is it Jim Schwartz right now? I mean, Jim Schwartz is a guy. Yes, it is Jim Schwartz, dude. This brain sometimes. I mean, the hell should I know about the Cleveland Browns? Somehow I know who the defensive coordinator is. So it's Jim Schwartz, okay? And, I mean, he's very experienced. So Ephraim Banda has worked with him, has been a part of good defenses. There's a quality of the unknown there, which I at least think makes him an interesting candidate for the Indianapolis Colts. But again, what did I say? Do I look at any of the candidates that the Colts have interviewed or have confirmed that they're going to interview so far and say I'm super excited about the prospect of these guys? No. I've been pretty clear. Well, not I've been pretty clear. I actually made one episode talking about my 2 favorite candidates, neither of which had anything to do with anything. You have Rex Ryan there, who looks like he's not going to be the head coach of the New York Jets, and you have Al Harris, defensive backs coach and great former player in this league. Did I say what Al? I lost my train of thought. Al Harris, defensive backs coach for the Dallas Cowboys and was a great player in the league. Rex Ryan, the question becomes, well, okay, you know, one, he's been out of coaching so long. Has the league changed to a point where you could trust that Rex Ryan's going to come in and get right back into the swing of things? And then also, is he interested in leaving the booth for anything other than a head coaching job? My guess, I don't know. I don't think so. But at the same time, he's talked about coaching. Oh gosh, you hear that? That's a little bit of the allergies right there. So Rex Ryan's a guy that I like in terms of the fact that we know he's aggressive. We know how great and successful he has been as a defensive coordinator in this league, and of course, a no-nonsense type of guy. He's kind of everything that we like about Wink Martindale. Rex Ryan would be like the level up from that. Okay, so whatever Wink wants to be, Rex Ryan is. That's what we like about Rex Ryan. And then Al Harris, I really like him as a potential, at least bring him in for an interview. I mean, he's now 50 years old. He's been coaching for quite a while at this point and has coached some really, really good defensive backs. Like, you're talking not only with the Cowboys and what they've been able to do. I mean, you're talking about guys like, Jordan Lewis and Trayvon Diggs. I should have had them available to reference. And then one other guy recently, nothing insightful there. Point being is Dallas has done good things in the secondary overall. And then you look back to when he was with the Chiefs and you had guys like Marcus Peters, Brandon Flowers, Sean Smith, all of which he was coaching very early in their career. Al Harris, branded as a physical football player, a tackler, right? A guy that's going to come out there and give it to you, you know? And I kind of like at least his makeup when you talk about the idea of a defensive coordinator. Now, we don't really know exactly what he'd run. We know he's working with Mike Zimmer right now. But Al Harris is a guy I would really like to see get an interview for this job, quite frankly. When it comes to defense specifically, I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all, because there's guys who were not players in the league that do a very good job. But something about on that defensive side of the football, a former player for me, I don't know. I quite like it. Like a former player that was a captain, you put them on the defensive side as a coordinator. Something about that I tend to like. I don't know if it's just the fact that they intimately understand the grind of an NFL season from a player's perspective, and you really can't cheat them. You know what I'm saying? For example, if you were trying to get one over on Gus Bradley, not to say Gus Bradley hasn't been in the league long enough and knows what it looks like, but at the same time, he hasn't been a player in the league. Okay, so maybe you could pull the wool over his eyes just a little bit. I'm just guessing. But in Al Harris, on the other hand, he knows exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and he did it at a very high level, so he would command the respect of the guys from that perspective, and they know when he's saying something, he's coming from a place where he understands what it is that you're going through, and you wonder if that'll resonate with the ears a little bit better of the players, and they'll play a little bit harder for him. But again, those are the two guys I like, and those are my thoughts on the candidates we have in place. Hoping to see some other names pop into this right now, because as it currently stands, could I get optimistic about a Dennis Allen or a Wink Martindale if they were brought in? Yeah, probably I could. But, would I be forced to be honest with the fact that maybe I wasn't thrilled about those hires to begin with, although I do view them as, qualified? Sure. Yeah, I'd say that's the case. So that's what I have on the defensive coordinators right now. We'll see if the story progresses. Until next time, my name is Justin. This right here was the Ryan the Bench Colts podcast. As always, like, subscribe if you have not yet. And as always, go Colts.